We have employees in, I think, 27 different states. We do business in 49 different states, industries of all shapes and sizes. We've worked with the largest turkey farm in the United States, to Graceland, home of Elvis Presley, to manufacturing, aerospace, insurance, ag. You name it.
You have to brag about yourself. That's what you've got to do. And it's a really difficult mindset shift to make when you've spent your entire life being taught, oh no, you got to be humble.
Our philosophy is that if you take great care of your people, they're going to take great care of your customers, because they are happy and satisfied and like what they do.
Let them do their job. They can come to you for ask for feedback. They can come to you for guidance, but don't constantly be like answering questions for them and telling them which direction they're going to go.
Banks are technology companies that provide banking services to their customers. Auto dealerships are technology companies that happen to sell cars to people and maybe help them finance stuff. Healthcare organizations are technology companies that provide healthcare solutions.
Have you ever wondered how a small team of college classmates can evolve into a cybersecurity giant on the Inc. 5000 list? John Waldman, co-founder of SPS CyberSecurity, joins us today to share his journey and the secrets behind building a successful cybersecurity firm that offers cutting-edge solutions and world-class customer service. So welcome to the show, John.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's a pleasure.
So why don't we start at the beginning? Why don't you share the story of how you and your college classmates transitioned from working in basements and random meeting rooms to building SPS CyberSecurity into the powerhouse that it is today?
You got it. It's a fun story. We refer to it as our garage band beginning, if you will. So my personal take on the story, because everybody has a little bit of a different flair, is it was 2004 and the IT market was not very active. And being the consummate college student that I was, that enjoyed every bit of college, I didn't really have a ton of direction in mind as I was graduating from school. So I had some really good relationships with a number of different professors at Dakota State University here in Madison, South Dakota, where we're based. And they encouraged me to pursue the Master's of Science in Information Assurance degree, of which it would have been the first year in the fall of 2004. As I was pondering my options, which were to go program COBOL for an insurance company in Minnesota, but I would have probably rather poked my own eyes out at that juncture. Not that I had a wonderful COBOL professor. I took 3 semesters of COBOL. She's fantastic, but not my cup of tea. I could have pursued a job in network administration, of which I had very little to no experience, and nobody was hiring at the time. My third option was to go into the MSIE program. So after some deep reflection, I figured I could probably handle 2 more years of college, and this seems pretty interesting. That's what I decided to pursue. So we started in the fall of 2004. There were 8 members of our first ever Masters of Information Assurance program at Dakota State University here. And we really figured our way around the world of information security. After a few weeks, one of the professors pulled each of us aside individually and said, hey, there are some banks in the region that have been reaching out to DSU about helping them solve a problem that they're facing, which is they're starting to get examined on IT stuff, much like they've been getting examined on safety and soundness and compliance. And we have an opportunity to try to help them understand what a risk assessment looks like and an audit looks like. So that's really what we did in between classes, meeting each other's basements or apartments or whatever the case was. And slowly we tried to figure out what does a good information security program look like? What does a good IT risk assessment look like? What does an audit look like? How are these banks getting examined? As I participated in the first ever bank examination which was probably the beginning of 2005-ish timeframe. I was working with the information security officer, the designated information security officer, who happened to also be the head cashier of the bank and had one of the first computers at this bank. So he got named the information security officer. And that's how it worked a lot back in the 2005, 2006 timeframe. The bank had to have an information security officer named. So maybe it was their kid was going to school for computers, or they were the first person at the bank to have the internet at their house, or they were handy with computers. That's the person that got named to be the information security officer. So I was hanging out with the information security officer and the IT examiner at the time. And that first meeting was that ISO's name was Joe. The examiner said, "Hey, Joe, do you guys have passwords on your computers?" And Joe said, "Yes, we do." He said, "Cool, let's get back to safety and soundness." And I exaggerate a little bit, but it was no more than a 20 to 30 minute conversation around passwords and this, that, and the other thing. The next year when we went back and had the same examiner, it was, "Hey, remember how we talked about passwords and stuff last year? This year in 2006, if you can't show me or you don't have it documented, then you're not doing it. And we're going to have to write you up about it." So that's really effectively how we got our start. So there was 8 of us at the time, and we slowly dwindled down to 4 of us when we graduated in May of 2006. So at that juncture, we were officially SPS, or we were known as Secure Banking Solutions back then. But then we went full time after we graduated. The fall before is Thanksgiving before that. So Thanksgiving in 2005 is when we had our first office space, which was renting a back office space from another business. In the spring of 2006, we hired our first individual, and we've just grown from there. Today, we are just north of 90 employees. We have employees in 27 different states. We do business in 49 different states, industries of all shapes and sizes. We've worked with the largest turkey farm in the United States, to Graceland, home of Elvis Presley, to manufacturing, aerospace, insurance, ag, you name it. We've worked in. Our roots are in the banking and the finance industry, and that's still the majority of our clients today. But we kind of work with anybody in any business that is in need of making really good cybersecurity decisions. That's a little bit of our origin story.
Two things about that story stick out to me. One, kudos to you for not doing the COBOL programming.
Thank you.
I happen to know, like in 2004, there was like an estimate that like 15% of applications rolled out would have used COBOL, and about 80% would have some kind of link to COBOL, but it's telling you that COBOL was on the downward swing. So you would have had to pivot at some point.
There are a lot of legacy applications that still run, especially in the financial industry, that still run on COBOL.
I know.
The folks that know COBOL and are good at COBOL do very well for themselves.
Supply and demand. Yep. And the other thing that stuck out to me was you're talking about, do you have passwords on your computer? And I took over for all the technology for a restaurant delivery service, and they had their initial software designed by another developer. And I come in there and I'm like, let's do a quick audit of everything that's going on here. And if I'm going to be responsible for this, let's figure it out. And I open up the database and I look at the user table and I'm like, why can't I read the passwords? I don't understand. And this is like 2001. And so I call the developer and he goes, I just save them to that, whatever they put in, I save it in the database. Like, oh my gosh. So it showed me 2 things. One, we immediately ran a hash routine on that and changed the code to fix that. But people's passwords back then were literally like password 123. They were the worst passwords you could ever imagine, because nobody understood at that time just how vulnerable they could be if someone got those passwords. Or like the person would use the exact same, it would be like their dog's name and the year they got the dog. And then they'd use it on everything. Banking, you name it, whatever. So that's interesting that you were in a situation like that. But So what were some of the big challenges that you faced in those early days, and how did you overcome them?
We still face plenty of challenges, as you might imagine. The first big challenge was really probably marketing ourselves. And to some extent, I'm still really bad about bragging about what we've done and what we've accomplished, or our company as a whole. I don't love talking about myself from that perspective. So that's always a challenge. As a bootstrapped startup, yeah, and we've been privately held, bootstrapped the whole time, no investment dollars by any means here at SBS. That was really probably the big challenge there, was how do you sell and how do you market yourself for college kids, not really knowing much of anything except for how to be operators. So how do you grow an organization from 4 operators that are going out and doing the work to telling the story? So I always tell a little bit of a story there, that there was an examiner in particular. So it was a couple years later, same original bank that I was talking about with the ISO and the password examiner. They had a new examiner come in, and he really kicked them in the tail, and he beat them up real good. And we ended up having a big sit down meeting with the FDIC out of Kansas City and the bank president. And it was this big thing for somebody that was relatively inexperienced like I was at the time. But the outcome of that was that we were able to convince the examiners the way that we were doing things was the right way, because they saw it backwards right away. They thought our audit was a risk assessment, our risk assessment was an audit. So we were, through education, able to help them understand this is the right way to do it. That examiner then went around and lit fires at about 10 other banks in the region and said, call SBS. They know what they're doing. So that was part of the way that we got our start. And then as we were able to do more work and get more clients, we were able to hire more folks, hire salespeople to go out there and get our name out there a little bit more. The other thing that we started leveraging right away was education. One of our philosophies, partially from coming from a university, or at least we grew up in a university setting from that perspective, is education, right? So we're willing to and excited about telling what's going on in the world of cybersecurity, how to protect yourself, how to protect your organization. What are the best things, the best ways to prevent yourself from identity theft or ransomware or phishing? Or prevention is a relative term, right? But prevent as much as possible, mitigate your risk. So we started speaking at conferences, which was a learning curve in and of itself. Got folks that have been speaking at banking conferences for 20, 30 years. At the time, in the mid 2000s, I was just graduating from college with my master's degree. I had long hippie hair, which my partner still makes fun of me for. The other challenge was to convince bank presidents that have been doing banking their whole lives that the technology that they have is risky, and getting them to take a 24-year-old kid seriously. So we had to dress the part. We had to be able to speak the part. So we had to grow up pretty quick in that world of a very established and traditional industry to fit that industry mold, if you will, a little bit. So that was a little bit of a challenge.
That's interesting. The part about not wanting to talk about yourself. It's something like my mom taught me to be really humble and not brag about yourself and all of that. And then you get into business for yourself and people say, oh, no, you have to brag about yourself. That's what you've got to do. And it's a really difficult mindset shift to make when you've spent your entire life being taught, oh, no, you got to be humble. Now, you mentioned earlier that you have over 90 employees across 27 states. That's some tremendous growth. Building staff to help scale a business is huge. I think it's one of the lesser known things people know how to do, but it's one of the most important things they can do for their business.
Absolutely.
So what strategies did you use to manage and sustain that growth?
Originally, we were a very in-person organization, right? So we had a great connection with Dakota State University. Obviously, we were fresh out of school. We knew DSU is not a very large school. So we knew most of the folks that were coming out of DSU, at the time. At one point, we were probably 97% BSU alumni. We started an internship program. So we had a little bit of a feeder from the university. We hired some folks that came from the banking world. Our first kind of COO type was a former bank president, as an example. So we knew this space pretty well. And that's, again, where we really grew up. But as we evolved over time, we acquired our first company in 2014, which was a small shop that did similar things to what we did at the time. There were about a third our size, maybe about 10 folks. That was based out of Arkansas. They had wonderful market share. Almost all of the community banks in Arkansas, as an example, used this firm. And they had a wonderful reputation, great customer care, and really good folks. So as we acquired this company and merged our organizations, we had to really figure out how to be remote. At the time, we had maybe one or two people that worked part-time remote. Otherwise, we were all in the same office. So it was really easy to onboard, to train, to have good conversations. And in 2014, all of a sudden we had 10 folks that were 1,500 miles away and 6 states away. So we had to figure out the remote work aspect of that. Really a lot of reflection on culture and values and who we want to be and how we want to interact with employees. And that spurred on a really tremendous focus of ours on culture. There's a lot of organizations, I think, that say that people first organizations, but I think we take that really seriously and really to heart. We always look at it as there are elements to doing business, right? There's the customer, there's the profit, and then there's your people. And a lot of organizations are profit first, customer second, people third. And we reverse that order. So our philosophy is that if you take great care of your people, they're going to take great care of your customers because they are happy and satisfied and like what they do. People that like what they do tend to take really good care of their customers. So if you got people that like what they do and take great care of your customers, and now you have happy customers, the bottom line, I wouldn't say takes care of itself, because we still pay plenty of attention to the financials and the health of our organization. But that's a really good byproduct of great people, good culture, customers that love you. Your business should stay pretty healthy as long as you're doing the right things.
That's a great mindset, because I coach my people that when they're usually coming to me because they're on the verge of divorce, they're working too many hours, working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, and they don't see a way out. And I tell them they've got to shift their mindset a little bit, because it's people first. If you look at the group of people you've hired, and for whatever reason, you're thinking to yourself, I'm not confident that this team can do the job that it needs to do in order to help me reduce my hours. Because that's really what people don't seem to understand about teamwork, obviously, is you're spreading out the workload amongst a team of people. And too many tech leaders, they think that because they're the most knowledgeable one in their department, that they should be involved in every decision. But I coach them that there's a reason you hired the people you hired, and you put them where you put them for a reason as well. Let them do their job. They can come to you for feedback. They can come to you for guidance, but don't constantly be like answering questions for them and telling them which direction they're going to go. When I was a CTO, I'd be in meetings and they'd ask a question about, can we do this? And it would impact maybe the database administrator. I'd say, I'm going to have to check with my team. And they'd say, but wait a minute, you're the one who makes the decision. Yeah, I am. I'm the one who ultimately makes a decision. But my team has to support this decision. They have to believe that it's going to work. And I'm not the one to say that. They're the ones to say that. So I think that's really huge, because you're right. People first, making them happy. They then make your customers happy, which then grows your business and your bottom line. It's just a simple equation that so many people miss. But one of the things I found interesting when researching you guys is you have over 1,300 organizations that rely on SPS for cybersecurity solutions. Do you have any success stories or examples of how your services made a significant impact for one of those companies?
Oh, sure. When we started, our slogan was driving successful IT exams. that's evolved a lot over the years. That was probably 18 years ago. Now we're more, I think our mission is to empower cybersecurity decisions for organizations. So that's our ultimate objective, is how do we take an organization from wherever it is today to helping that organization really understand that cybersecurity is a critical business function. In 2024, 2025, if you pay any attention to headlines, this year it's been Change Healthcare, it's been Evolve Bank. I can't think of the automotive industry platform that was down for a significant period of time, but organizations are so reliant on technology and their vendors to operate that if something breaks, it doesn't even have to be your organization that gets hit with ransomware. It could be your banking partner. It could be whoever provides you your critical software application, whether it's a CRM or the software that you use to process your transactions or do the thing that you do really well, or if it's your managed service provider or whoever the case is, then you don't do business. So that's one of our key focuses, is helping organizations understand that they're technology companies. If they rely on technology and the internet to do business operations, then they're a technology company that happens to be involved in banking, right? Banks are technology companies that provide banking services to their customers. Auto dealerships are technology companies that happen to sell cars to people and maybe help them finance stuff. Healthcare organizations are technology companies that provide healthcare solution. Because if you go to a hospital and they weren't able to see you for a week, that's a problem. That's helping organizations really understand what that looks like, where their risks are, and how to best protect themselves from those cyber risks, as well as to have a plan going forward of if the worst case scenario does happen and we do have a cyber incident, then how do we respond and how do we recover? But there's been numerous stories. I can't think of a specific story off the top of my head, but I know that there's numerous stories where a client would call us up and say, hey, we're having a regulatory issue. We're going to get shut down in 90 days as a financial institution, as an example, if we don't get this stuff done and we need help. And we would go and dedicate some resources, knock everything that needs to be out to get them across that 90-day finish line. And a year later, so banks are rated on a 1 to 5 scale, as an example, right? 1 being the best, 5 meaning you're getting shut down tomorrow. A 2 is fine, a 1 is great. A 4 means you're one of those banks that you've probably got a 90-day consent order, or maybe a 180-day consent order, as an example, to say you need to change what you're doing and you need to accomplish this within this set time frame. So those are a lot of our wonderful success stories, taking a financial institution from a consent order to a year later being a 2 on the scale and eventually becoming a really well-rated bank. But again, all of that, some of that change is tactical, but a lot of that is organizational, just changing your focus on prioritizing cybersecurity and mitigating risk from that perspective. Again, the banking industry has long been very traditional, and that's changing. It's changed pretty significantly over the last 10 years with the advent of technology and how banking has become part of everybody's everyday life. Like you open your phone and check your bank account at least once a day, right? 10 years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case. So the banking industry's had to evolve with the needs of the consumer as well, but so has the operational mindset to really understand that they are technology companies and put people with technology backgrounds and experience in leadership roles.
Oh yeah, I think banks had to go through a lot of different shifts because of the different types of attacks that come out.
Yes.
It's one of the industries, financial industries in general, is one of the industries that are hit really hard by that stuff. Most cybersecurity companies, they measure their success in terms of data protection and risk mitigation. What's an unusual KPI that you personally pay attention to that others might overlook?
our top is service, customer service. We have a department here at SBS that we call our customer success team, right? That's their job. And we have a customer experience manager. We have a customer success manager. Our biggest KPI, and in fact, it's one of the KPIs that we use to measure our company, is our NPS score, our net promoter score. We have an external NPS score. We also have an internal employee net promoter score. And we've really just been using that as a benchmark for probably the last 12-ish months. But we've always tried to measure customer success. And I believe that we started a G2 campaign earlier this year to get some feedback, some stories from our customers. And I think as of just earlier this week, our NPS score was around 80, if I remember correctly.
That's excellent.
And so our metric for success there was like a 60, because 60 is excellent. Right. And we've exceeded that. We were, at least earlier this year, the top rated cybersecurity consulting firm on G2 from all companies. And we take tremendous pride in that. We pride ourselves on excellent customer service. Everybody says that they have really good customer service, but I think we have a lot of the metrics to back that up. And if you want to work here at SBS, you have to be really good at customer service. Even our network security team, our team of hackers, has to be able to interact with customers on a regular basis and provide them excellent service. We don't just do a pen test and send a report and say, thanks for your money. We do exit interviews and we follow up and we double check false positives and we explain the results of our report in an exit meeting. Our goal is to partner with our clients so that it's not a service provider customer relationship, but more of a partnership. We have great retention of our customers, somewhere in the 90 percentile range. And I think that speaks volumes about the quality of people that we have here at SBS and the type of service work that we do. We take great care to make sure our clients are satisfied, not just because we want them to come back, but that's just who we are. We want to provide tremendous value to our clients and really empower them to make the right cybersecurity decisions for their organizations.
So what's your wildest dream for the future of SBS? Where do you envision the company going?
That's a great question. I like long-term, probably nearer term is to be one of the top 100 largest companies based in South Dakota, which would put us at a pretty significant clip. There are some pretty large companies here in South Dakota. It's a very friendly state for corporations. That's a little bit more near term. My wildest dream would be to pass SBS on to the next generation of people. We don't have any ambitions to go public. We want to remain private from that perspective. But for SBS to outlast me, we'll say that, like for SBS to last beyond my partner in my lifetime would be tremendous. We don't have any ambitions. I'm not going to be Jeff Bezos. We're not going to be Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. That's not what we want to do. But to be able to build something that lasts a long time, to be sustainable, and to really help a lot of communities, a lot of organizations, and to leave something behind. That's my personal wildest dream. I'm focused on the legacy of that from that perspective.
That's a great answer, though. I think legacy is important. I think people out there are definitely aware of cybersecurity risks. If they want to reach out and get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, best way would be to check out our website, cyber.com, or to connect with me. I'd love to connect with anybody that is listening on LinkedIn, or check out SPS CyberSecurity on LinkedIn as well. That would be one of the easiest ways to get a hold of us.
Awesome. Viewers, you're going to see there's a card on the screen. Screenshot that if you want to grab that contact information. But thanks again so much for spending the time with me today. I've really appreciated it.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure and an honor, Mike.
Thanks, everybody, for watching Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. New episodes every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Hope you guys have a great week and you come back next week for more enlightening conversation.